We prefer not to comment on our patients and respect for our patients.
Can you talk about just personally, I mean, seeing this sort of thing, knowing that they, I mean, just as human beings, outside of being doctors, you know, treating these people who have come in here after experiencing one of, if not the worst event of their lives, and, you know, having the responsibility of treating these people and you know, ensuring the best outcome that they can have. I mean, how does that affect you all just as human beings?
Well, we do this every day. So what we saw today, we have penetrating trauma, non-penetrating trauma. We're level 2 trauma center, and that's what we do every day. So fortunately for everybody, we were located very close to the high school where this shooting happened. So fortunately for everybody, they brought these patients to our hospital, and we were able to do a great job to do the right thing.
How do you, the suspect was brought here. I know you can't say much about, you know, his medical condition or whatever, but for a lot of people at home, you know, they might be surprised that the suspect was being brought here. How do you guys kick in the Hippocratic Oath and do your job, knowing what this guy potentially is accused of doing?
Every patient that comes in gets treated as a patient, and we take care of them medically, and that's what we do.
Was there any particular reason why he was brought to this facility versus one of your other facilities, hospital systems?
Because of the location. They have to go to the nearest trauma facility, and we were the nearest trauma facility.
Is this the biggest mass casualty you can remember?
For our hospital, yes.
Are you expecting more victims?
We cannot comment on that.
Can you tell us if it was large caliber, small caliber? I mean,
No, we cannot comment on that.
Do you know the update on conditions for what the other hospitals, the patients at the other hospitals?
Not right now.
Of the 6 patients that are still here, will any of them be released tonight?
No.
Are any of them still in surgery? Did the surgeries go on after the incident?
We still have 3 patients in the operating rooms right now, and they're in stable condition.
Did all of them undergo some kind of surgery?
No.
Can you describe what those who are, I guess, are not as serious injuries, what their demeanor was like? Can you, I mean, I know it's obvious, but if you can describe it for us?
Well, I mean, I prefer not to comment on a specific patient's demeanor, but, you know, as a human being, you could imagine that they would be in shock, or, you know, be emotional about the whole situation.
Can you describe, you got a call at mass casualty coming in?
Pardon me?
You got a call mass casualty coming in?
We work closely with our pre-hospital personnel and set that up.
Jump into.
Yep.
How many
Time for one more question.
Can you walk through what's next for these patients, specifically the 3 in critical, 3 and stable, and their families, in terms of services? I understand chaplains are now here.
They're going to have successful surgeries, they're going to recover, and they're going to go home.
How many doctors are working on this?
Thanks very much. Have a good night.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. So guys, just to kind of recap for you exactly what it is that doctors out here were telling us with kind of a somber mood, as you can tell. Imagine having to deal with this crisis that they were dealt with today. They were saying that the Broward Health System had a total of 17 patients that they are treating, but here at Broward North, they received 8 patients, and they also received the suspect. He, as we have been reporting for quite a while, was treated and released. Unfortunately, 2 of the 8 patients that were brought here passed away. 3 are in critical condition and 3 are in stable condition. They wouldn't go much into the severity of the injuries, but this is a trauma center, so naturally they were probably having to deal with some pretty traumatic injuries as a result. And I believe that one of the reporters asked if they were all gunshot related, and I believe that he answered in the affirmative on that. They say that this is something that they routinely practice for, and so they were completely prepared for this event. However, he would not say whether or not more victims would be brought here tonight. That is certainly a possibility, as things are still kind of going on over there at the school in Parkland. That's the very latest here from Broward North. Once we get any new information, we'll go ahead and pass it along to you when that happens. Jackie and Keith?
Yes. All right. Jamie, thanks so much. Obviously a somber mood there at the hospital, where they said that they received, in that specific hospital, 8 patients. One of them was a suspect, but they had 2 fatalities in that hospital.
Right, 3 in critical condition, 3 in stable condition. Want to check in now with Juwan Strader, back up in Parkland now with Juwan's got a guest with him.
Yes, I have Hector Navarro. Hector is only 18 years old, and he was inside the school at the time of the shooting. He heard the gunshots, and you said you heard the gunshots. You were with your teacher. Then what happened, Hector?
Well, it was more of a surprise for everybody. We didn't really know what was happening. A lot of kids thought it was a joke at first, but I knew that it was a gunshot. I knew from the start. From as soon as I heard the first pop, I was like, that's a gunshot. So we started to just run. Like, we ran towards this little section, and we went to West Glades Middle School. We actually started all filing towards there. And we were all supposed to stay in a line and stay calm, but we're all running and squeezing together, and I was like, God forbid anything would have happened, I don't want to be in this area. So me and a bunch of my friends, we hopped the fence, and we started running after we hopped the fence because we did not want to be in that little enclosed area just in case anything would have happened.
And you said that you decided to go back because someone was still in the school.
Yeah, so we were going to go back because our friend's brother was actually still in the school, and we didn't know if he was safe or not, and we wanted to make sure he was okay. So we all started running back, but he met us halfway, so we didn't even have to go back into the building.
When you started to process everything that was happening, the information, now you just found out that 17 people died. When you heard those numbers, when you were able to say, you're probably still processing everything, where are you at? What are your thoughts when you heard those numbers?
I'm in disbelief, honestly. I'm in utter disbelief. I didn't think this could ever happen. I didn't think this was ever possible, especially at this school. And I don't think anyone who died deserved to die today. I just think they were in the wrong place at the wrong time. That's it.
And you said, as far as the school moving forward, how tough is that going to be for you and for your classmates?
It isn't going to be easy, I'll tell you that. It's going to be a little of a process. We're obviously going to grieve. We're obviously going to have our struggles. We're obviously going to miss the ones who passed away today. But as a whole, as a school, as a family, I think we'll learn from this experience, and we'll be able to get past this moment.
Nicholas Cruz, the suspected shooter, you said you didn't know him personally, but you heard about him.
Yes, I've heard that he was expelled last year. I don't know what for, but I know he was expelled, and he was on the crazier side of things.
You used the word different before.
Yeah, a different side of things, a crazier side, because I heard he was just a little deranged a little bit. And that's why I heard he was put into a different school and everything.
But you told me off camera a minute ago that you were upset that the signs were there.
Yeah, there was definitely signs there. If you were to look at his Instagram, you see, I saw it after the fact. I saw it as a picture, and someone's like, hey, this is his Instagram. It's him with knives, guns, picture him buying a gun. It's a bunch of different things. It's like, how come no one saw this and decided to report it? Like, see something, say something. That's the quote I like to use.
All right, Hector Navarro, thank you so much. I really appreciate you, really do. And wish you the best. And of course, I'm going to stay in touch with you. We're going to talk a little bit more, okay?
Appreciate it.
All right. Well, Hector Navarro is just one of the many students that we're hearing. We're hearing so many different stories coming out of the high school. And of course, we're going to continue to hear these stories more and more throughout the coming days, the weeks, because this is a story, of course, that is still developing. We're getting a lot of information on what happened. And of course, we will continue to find out a little bit more out here from the scene. That is the latest live out here. Jawan Strader, back to you guys in the studio.
Jawan, thanks. A very articulate young man saying, see something, say something. That's a really good message, because by all accounts of people that knew him or knew of him, they all say similar descriptions about the suspect, that he was a little off. And as we know now, that he was kicked out of that school because of disciplinary reasons. So obviously there was something wrong with him, and some people even said that if there was someone that would have done this, it would have been him.
Right. It's very consistent with what we've been hearing all day, and he talked about his Instagram account. Trina had spoken about it earlier, that there were just disturbing things that the kids that she knows from Parkland were telling her. There were disturbing things on there, and he kind of was consistent with that and saying, yeah, there were guns, there were knives, things like that on there.
And this is what we know right now, the very latest. 17 people are dead. 17 victims are being treated right now system-wide at Broward Health. We just heard from some of the doctors who, in that particular one in North Broward, they were treating 8 individuals. 2 of them passed away. 3 victims still remain in critical condition, and the suspect was also treated there and released.
Correct, he was. And the weapon he used, we have some more information on this. We have a picture of it, of one similar to the weapon that Nicholas Cruz used. We're going to pull that up. There it is. That's a lot of people like to call this an assault rifle, but it's an AR-15, and gun enthusiasts hate it when you call it an assault rifle. But that holds a magazine and Willard can talk more about this particular weapon. It's a weapon that you can put together. We understand that Cruz had a backpack. It was disassembled in his backpack. It's something that you can put together very, very quickly in just a small amount of time. And the magazines will hold, 15 to 30 different rounds. Just depends on how big the magazine is.
We're going to talk to Willard in just a moment, but let's go to Laura Rodriguez. She's live at the scene, and she's had the opportunity. You were there early on. You saw some of those parents who were in desperate need of some information. Tell us what you're seeing now.
Well, Jackie, I received more information from the Broward Sheriff's Office from one of the spokespersons here, and they tell me that 12 people were killed inside the school, 3 people were killed outside the school, and 2 people, as Jamie mentioned, died at the hospital. There are bodies, I'm told, still inside this school. The medical examiner's office has to remove these bodies. It is unclear at this time their ages, exactly who was a teacher or who was a student, or if there were any teachers, in fact, who were killed. So again, no information at this time about their identities. The sheriff did also confirm that the shooting started outside the school and then moved inside the school. We're also told that the all clear has been given. All buildings have been cleared. You're taking a live look right now at 2 mobile command posts set up. I did see an FBI mobile command post drive in here about an hour and a half ago. The SWAT team, we're told, has gone room by room. The bomb squad, we're also told, is currently doing a sweep just as a precaution. Moments ago, earlier today, I did speak to a student who was inside when these shots were fired. She says they had a fire drill this morning, and then around 2 p.m. the fire alarm went off again. So there was a lot of confusion. She says she heard at least 10 gunshots and managed to run out of the school in time. Let's listen to a little bit more of what she had to say.
I was standing there with my teacher, and we were trying to figure out what was going on, and then all of a sudden we heard a whole bunch of gunshots, and people were falling, and I screamed, "There's a shooter, there's a shooter," and I turned around and I ran, and I actually fell downstairs, and they were pushing all the students onto the baseball fields, but I've heard stories of people going to shoot the crowd, so I ran the opposite direction, and I got off campus actually before the police got here.
And you can hear that tremble in her voice, and I can say, speaking to many parents and students throughout the afternoon and throughout the evening, everyone had a shaky voice. But as soon as the shooter was apprehended, there was a sigh of relief and a sense of relief from many of the parents who were gathered here just under this bridge where I am standing. The sheriff also saying moments ago that he did speak to Governor Scott. He also spoke to President Trump, and Sheriff's Office telling me that they will provide any updates as soon as they have them right here. So we will stay here and continue to monitor the situation. That's the very latest. Back to you in the studio.
Laura, the audio cut out during the sheriff's news conference, and we've been talking about Nicholas Cruz and his interest in guns and weapons and things like that. Did I hear the sheriff say, again, it broke up, did he say something about Nicholas Cruz having websites that they're going to look into?
I'm not sure. It's a big crowd, a big media crowd, so it was hard to hear the sheriff unless I was hooked into headphones, but I was standing a little bit further away, so I didn't hear that, and I don't want to make that assumption, for something that is not confirmed. What he did say is what I just said moments ago in the live report, where he gave that breakdown of who was unfortunately killed inside the school and outside of the school, but I did not hear anything particularly about that shooter.
Okay, Laura Rodriguez live on the scene. Thanks so much. And we've been talking to Ari Adzer all day. He's been talking to some students and some parents as well. Very familiar with this school. Ari, you had just done a story on them. It's one of the best schools in the state of Florida, and many are thinking, how could this happen here?
You know, Jackie, it's hard to overstate the level of shock that you feel here in Parkland right now. This is a community that is immensely proud of its public schools. Our colleagues Trina Robinson and Eric Harriman live here. Eric has his 3 kids here in school. He loves the schools here. Eric and I were both at West Glades Middle School, which is right next door to Marjory Stoneman Douglas High School, on Monday for Brag About Your School, because that particular middle school had the highest numbers in the state when it comes to A rating points. So this is an indication of the excellence they expect from their schools here. Stoneman Douglas is one of those top schools in the state in every category: academics, band, sports, everything. You name it, they do it well. So that this could happen here is an indication that it literally can happen anywhere in this country. And we've seen it happen anywhere in this country. Since Columbine, the majority of these mass shooting incidents have happened really at suburban schools, right? So this is the kind of thing that sends a level of shock that's hard to really categorize and hard to really emote and show you on television. Just the faces of people walking by. We've been watching students and parents walk down the street here on their way home, leaving the middle school, leaving the high school all day. They are stunned. They don't know what to say. They don't know how to react. They're thankful that their child is safe, but at the same time, everybody is devastated to think that there are 17 people who died. Some of them faculty members, no doubt. And who knows if that count will go up higher with people who are in the hospital. Hopefully not, but you never know with the way these things work. So now the focus will be obviously on everybody hugging their kids. Figuring out what happened is the later thing that's going to come here. My colleague Tony Pipitone was just discussing with me a few minutes ago about his look into the background of the alleged shooter. And apparently, if it's the same person, this young man may have lost both his mother and father in recent years. Not that there's any excuse for this kind of thing, but you don't know what kind of psychosis is building up with a kid who may have been bullied, who may have been the odd man out, so to speak, and what happened to set him off and to do something like this. It's just mind-blowing to think about, and it's unfathomable to think about the level of tragedy here. So this school, what can I tell you about this school? We were just there on last Thursday, at Marjory Stoneman Douglas High School to shoot a feature story on a wonderful student there. The security is like every other school in Broward County and in Miami-Dade County. You have to check in at the front desk. You just can't walk onto campus. There are gates everywhere. It's locked. There's one point of entry, single point of entry. You walk in, they have to check you in. They knew us when we walked in because we've been there so many times for TV stories. We still had to present ID, still had to check in, still had to go through the procedure that they have for security at every school. How this guy walked in with a gun in his backpack, we don't know. Perhaps somebody knew him before because he was a student here at one point before he was expelled. Maybe he just knew how to come in, and that's how he did it. But all that is going to be hashed out. First things first, dealing with the trauma inflicted on all of these students. Back to you guys.
Okay, Ari Alger, thanks. Let's go to Johnny Archer. He's at Broward Health now with some new information. Johnny, what do you have for us?
All right, we are at Broward Health Medical Center. We're just getting an update from doctors now, so I want to tune into these doctors as they're speaking.
Okay, I'm Dr. Benny Menendez. I'm the Chief Medical Director here of the Emergency Department. Let me spell my last name is B-E-N-N-Y-M-E-N-E-N-D-E-C. So I'm here in behalf of Broward Health, and I'm going to talk to you about Broward Health North. That's the other institution, and Broward Health Medical Center, an institution here. So today we have a tragedy that happened at the Douglas School, and we received from this school, we received 7 victims from there. From them, 5, they are stable. 2 of them, they are critical. From Broward Health North, they have 9 victims. 4 of them, they are stable, including the suspect. And then we have 3 critical and 2 stables. Right now, they are dealing with all these patients. I cannot give you any more information or details about the patient due to confidentiality, trying to identify some of the victims.
Can you talk about there's a lockdown going on right now at this facility? Can you tell us more about that? And are family allowed to get in to see their relatives?
Yes, right now we are taking care of the patient first, and there's the confidentiality, so the management is taking care of the family members.
But there is a lockdown going on right now, correct, or no?
Yes, right now, yes.
So what does the lockdown mean for everybody else that's not related to one of the victims of this?
The lockdown, what it means that nobody should come in or come out in this institution until we make sure that all the perimeter is clear and nobody will come and attempt anything else.
Are the victims who were brought here, are they gunshot wounds?
Most of the victims that got here, they were gunshot wounds.
Is there reason to believe that the hospital is unsafe, Dr.
That's why you did the lockdown?
No, the hospital is a safe place right now to be. Is that we want to make precautions.
Is the short here?
No.
He's not here.
Do you expect any more victims to be transported to this facility or any other facility for Broward Health Systems?
From understanding, we don't expect any more victims.
Are family members of the victims here?
They are family members of the victims.
Am I understanding there's a room set up for them? Or are they
Yes, we are taking care, administration is taking care of all the family members of the victims.
How long?
This is the second major tragedy that your health center has had to deal with in a year and a month. How do you guys cope with that?
Well, first we train, we make these drills often. We like not to have it, but when we're ready. And we have a team of multiple specialists and surgeons, emergency physician, and we practice for this.
How long will this lockdown be put in place? When will it be lifted?
It's until 8 a.m.
Until 8 a.m. in the morning.
So that means anybody that has family members that are currently being treated right now that are not involved with the school shooting cannot come into the building?
No, we will take care of the family members, and individual will let them know what's going on.
And you said 8 I just want to be clear about the lockdown. If somebody has another type of emergency, can they come to this facility?
I can address that.
Okay.
I'm Dr. Lucio. I'm the chief of staff of the medical staff here. And the hospital is open for business. And anyone with any injury can come to the hospital. Any illness can come to the hospital. They will be taken care of. But a lockdown is simply a security measure for the protection of the victims, their family, as well as the physicians and staff that are taking care of the victims.
So in terms of visitors, visitors can't just walk in the building.
In a time of crisis like this, it's better to have control over the situation, and you have better control when you control who's coming in and who's coming out. And that's pretty much why it's done.
It seems like some people are getting in and some people aren't, so how are you making those decisions?
Excuse me?
How are you guys making the decisions of who's getting in and who's not? Because some people...
those decisions are made by our management team and our medical staff team based on the necessity of the personnel that are here as far as physicians, nurses, and staff. And again, it's done purely for the safety of everybody involved, the victims and the employees.
We're going to cut it off now. We're going to switch over to Spanish media.
Can I just be clear that the lockdown is for all the facilities, not just this property here? Is that for all facilities? Just for this property? What about the other properties?
It's
under similar, but not the same. Okay.
We're going to go to Spanish now because we don't have any other information.
Okay. So, so you got an idea of what happened. They have 7 patients here at Broward Health Medical Center, 5 of them in serious condition, 2 in critical condition, and right now there's a lockdown until 8 o'clock in the morning tomorrow morning. So right now they are letting people come in that do have emergencies, that need help, but in terms of people visiting the facility, you can't just walk in the building. For now, we're going to send it back to you, Jackie.
Johnny, before you leave there, let's clarify this because there was some confusion there. That word lockdown may not have been the best term to use concerning this. Clarify exactly what is going on there, that if a person has an emergency, they can go to these facilities and they're open for business, but they just want to be careful about visitors and those kinds of things. Can you clarify that for our audience at this hour?
Yeah, that's right. So they're letting people, if you can, they're not letting people just walk in the hospital if you don't have an emergency. If you are a visitor, a family, or a friend, you can't just walk in the building. But if you do have an emergency, you do need some type of medical attention, they are open for business, is what the doctor said. So yeah, a lockdown right now, that's probably not the best word to use, but they are putting, I guess, restrictions in place until 8 o'clock tomorrow morning.
Over at the medical facility tonight. Some new information, Trina, and sadly, again, as this continues to go forward, just got off the phone and got some more information that this person who is now in police custody, the 19-year-old, that while he was a student at the high school, that he was part of the military's JROTC program and also part of the team that uses weapons in terms of rifle training. This isn't any kind of live ammunition or anything like that
but he had marksmanship skills.
He had some training in this area. The student I spoke with who was on the team with him told me frankly that she was shocked that this turned out to be him being arrested by BSO today, at least from her perspective, while he was on the junior ROTC military team, that he carried himself well. Now, we've heard a lot of students throughout the course of this day say that that certainly was not the case. This program set up by the military is something that we use to get young people interested in the military and to give them discipline and all of these types of things that they'll end up being productive members of our country and our society. In this situation, some of the training that he received, unfortunately now we're finding out, came from one of our high school military programs.
But it appears that he was a troubled kid and had been expelled from the school, and later, after all of his, I guess, exemplary service in ROTC, things must have changed. It's because everybody who talks about him says that he was a quite disturbed kid. They expected and anticipated for him to do something someday. Also, we want to remind folks that there is a big need for blood at this time. So if you can give blood over the next couple of days, please do so. Again, we have 17 dead. We believe that Nicholas Cruz was the shooter. A 19-year-old who lived in the Coral Springs area did the shooting at Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School in Parkland that left quite a few more people injured, and that is why there's a call out for people to donate blood tonight.
Yeah, and Trina, at this hour, he is over at the Broward Sheriff's Office, their main headquarters. Presumably from the legal side of this, they will basically ask him if he wants to waive his Miranda rights not to say anything and to have an attorney, and if he will speak to them. Also in the state of Florida here, he has 24 hours before he has to appear before a bond court judge. And the state attorney in Broward County tonight gathering whatever information, details they can, because presumably tomorrow morning he'll appear before the bond court judge. The state attorney will need to lay out what they know at this point. Obviously, from what we see here, these fatalities, this is a non-bondable offense here in the state of Florida. And so the judge will hear all of that tomorrow morning, and we're going to find out much more in the morning hours at that bond court hearing. It's not only just about the specific charges, but what at this point the prosecutors want us to know about what took place inside this school.
And right now, you are seeing some pictures still from the vicinity up there, and I am told, I've been talking to my neighbors and friends, that it's still chaotic. Many of the businesses, you can't get in or out of them. The entire main drag there, which is Coral Ridge, that runs through Parkland, on this side of Parkland, basically is kind of shut down because people can't get in and out because there's still people trying to gather their kids up. There's still a number of police from the Coral Springs Police Department on the scene, and also from the Sheriff's Department. And of course, Stoneman Douglas High School remains a crime scene as the investigation into how and why and exactly what happened in that school continues and launches into full gear.
You know, we had a picture of this weapon up a short time ago,
The
and Keith
AR-15.
and Jackie were looking at that particular weapon and its capabilities. Certainly, you can see the kind of carnage that it can do throughout any kind of event like this. And because he had that backpack today, he was, in essence, was able to break that weapon down into two different parts, be able to put it together pretty quickly, I'm told, with just 2 pins, and then cause the kind of damage that he did during the course of this afternoon.
And so much has been talked about the security of the school. And again, as an adult, when you go into that high school, and I was in another high school today to shoot a story, as an adult, they're going to stop you. You don't look like you're part of, who should be there. But you see students coming and going. And when I went into the school, Stoneman Douglas, just 2 weeks ago, there were no metal detectors, and they've never had really an incident there to heighten to the level that they needed metal detectors. You know, you lived in Philly. There are a lot of schools that you go in and there are metal detectors, and they've been there for years. This school does not have that.
Now, as far as him leaving the school grounds, I was told he was basically trying to blend in with the other students.
And sounded like he blended in to get into the school.
Yes, on
very
entry and exit.
Exactly.
And that when the law enforcement officers actually found him, and they had a great description of him, and apparently from multiple people, we were told that one school employee saw him and gave a very good description to police, but also many of the students, because they found him in a very quick fashion not too far from the school grounds.
And I think one of the things was, and we heard this from so many of the kids and also kids who called me, you know, while they were at the school, that so many people anticipated that he would do something like this one day. And so immediately people not only thought they had seen him, but they thought he might do something like this. And so he was the first name that people brought up to police when they started questioning people and when they arrived on the scene.
We haven't heard yet from the superintendent, Dr. Runcie, tonight about officially what will be the plan and procedure for tomorrow for not just this school, but all the schools in Broward County. Unfortunately, when this kind of thing or something similar, not to this magnitude,
we've never had anything
has happened
of this
here.
magnitude.
But the students are offered psychological counseling.
Yes.
There are grief counseling people and experts who the school board has hired and probably will need to bring in even more to be able to talk to these students, the surviving students, and especially those who witnessed this firsthand about what they saw and how they can move forward in a positive manner.
Now, we're running up a little scroll there that says all rooms in the buildings have been cleared, and that's cleared of students. So all of the kids are out of the school. They're either over at the Marriott, where parents could come and pick up their kids at that staging area, or they've been allowed to go home or go on their way. So I can't say at all that things are getting back to normal in Parkland because, again, it's a very quiet town. There's not a lot of traffic. There's not a lot of people. It has been growing in recent years as they annex some more property in. So there are more people than they were, say, maybe 6 years ago. But still, compared to Miami or Pembroke Pines or even neighboring Coral Springs, it's kind of a small town atmosphere. It's kind of a paradise, and that's why people move there for the great schools, the quiet life, and all of the activities for children.
The school board certainly, and the Broward Sheriff's Office, and as we were saying, this unfortunately is the second time in 13 months that we've had a mass shooting incident in Broward County, and that the things that they learned from before and over at the airport hopefully were applied today. But certainly the school board will have to take a look at its processes, its procedures, in terms of security for the school and people entering the school, and also what is done when this kind of active shooter situation takes place.
And again, talking about those metal detectors, as far as I know, there isn't one. I didn't pass through one, but is that going to be something that may have to be installed? And Ari made the point, if it could happen here, it could happen anywhere. This community is as close to paradise as you can get. There's very little crime. There are tons of activities for kids. You see children everywhere. You go to the Publix and you're seeing, you know, Girl Scouts everywhere, but many of them were selling Girl Scout cookies last night, quiet. I mean, it's suburbia.
Trina, when I found out, you know, that was very disheartening to me that this person was in one of our high school military programs. The people who run these programs in South Florida and presumably at this school as well, people who had served in the military, either still in the reserve or had retired from the military and moved on to this kind of job with the Broward County schools, and also we have it in Miami-Dade County schools as well. And they have a sharp eye. Many of these people, soldiers who have served our country overseas, and they have the ability to be able to look out and see if there could be potentially trouble, especially from someone that's receiving, even though it can be basically just a pellet gun at that point, any kind of weapons training. And at least to this point, there's no indication that the people who are running our military program there detected something wrong with him, which is much different than what the other students have said. But the student I spoke with who was on that rifle team with him said she's shocked that this happened today.
Hey, Willard, a quick question, because I know you're familiar with the junior ROTC program. How extensive is the training for some of these kids?
The training is very basic when it starts out as a freshman, and it goes forward throughout your senior year. And the whole concept, Jackie, is to provide more responsibility to the people who are about to graduate, and they, in essence, are in charge of the people below them. How is that done? We say in the military, if a person can march next to you and march in the right time and do the right thing, when the time of the shooting comes for us, you know that person's going to be there. You don't have to look over in the jet and go, hey, where are they? You know they're going to be Johnny on the spot because they were there when we all said turn right. So it starts very basic with marching, those kinds of things. And we do have some of these specialty programs like this kind of weapons program that he got some training in.
I was ROTC, and it teaches you discipline and service to your country and just to be a good person. So something obviously went wrong with this young man. Right now, let's check with Jawan Strader. He's back out on the scene there with more information that he's been able to gather for us. Jawan.
Yeah, Trina, as the superintendent said, this is a day you never want to or ever hope to see here. Again, recapping exactly what happened here. As of what we know so far, because this investigation continues, is that roughly at about 2:30 here at Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School, 19-year-old Nicholas Cruz is accused of walking inside the school and shooting several people, killing a total of 17 people who are now confirmed dead. Again, he was apprehended after he was trying to pose as a student walking not far from the school. He was taken into custody, and we understand that he is on his way to the Broward County Jail as of right now. This is a story that has gripped this entire community. Many people that we've spoken to are in total shock and dismay, as well as several students that we've spoken to as well, as they try to process exactly what happened here. This is going to take this community some time before they're able to heal from this shooting, as we continue to learn more and more details into exactly why and this had to happen in the first place. Of course, we will continue to follow this breaking news story, and you can always keep it locked to the NBC6 news app, and you can go to NBC6.com. We will be online, and of course, we will have a lot more tonight at 11 o'clock. That is the latest out here from the scene. Jawan Strader, NBC6 News.
Jawan, thanks. And of course, we should mention that we will have Olympics coverage starting at 8 p.m. And then, of course, as Jawan mentioned, at 11 p.m. we'll have news. And also, we're going to cover all of the news conferences and all the breaking news and latest news on NBC6.com as well. But some tidbits here on this school shooting. This was the 4th deadliest school shooting in U.S. history. More deaths than Columbine, Keith. That is a huge thing to capture and, to really grab your mind around.
Obviously, the biggest shooting so far this year in the United States, and believe it or not,
6 school shootings.
6 school shootings
since
in
January.
1 month, January 1st to February 2nd. These are the statistics we have. January 10th, a elementary school in Sierra Vista, Arizona, 1 student was killed. High school in Texas back on January 22nd, 1 student injured there. January 22nd also, this one in New Orleans at a high school, 1 student injured. January 23rd, the very next day, a high school in Benton, Kentucky, 2 students killed, 18 injured. And then February 1st, a middle school in Los Angeles, California, 2 students shot there. And then, of course, today, the mass shooting, 17 people are dead.
Marjorie Stoneman Douglas in Parkland, close to 3,000 students, 17 dead. Still, I think 16 are being treated at area hospitals. Some are in critical condition. We heard from some of the doctors in the Broward Health System here. They're still actively treating some patients. The suspect was also treated at one of the hospitals. He was later released. Right now, he's at the Broward Sheriff's Office, obviously answering questions. No motive as of yet as to what could have led Nicholas Cruz, 19-year-old Nicholas Cruz, to create havoc and devastation to a school here in South Florida. We heard from both senators here in South Florida. Bill Nelson saying our worst fears are being realized. It looks like it's a number of fatalities. Praying for all those students, families, and school members affected at the high school. And Senator Marco Rubio, who said just finished an update from federal authorities on the Florida school shooting. It is clear The attack was designed and executed to maximize loss of life. And when he talks about maximize loss of life, we're talking about 17 lives that were taken today in this shooting at the high school.
And perhaps the senator has a little more information that the sheriff was willing to release, who Sheriff Israel just called this catastrophic, made him sick to his stomach. Several casualties at the time of the news conference. We've learned that it has since been 17 people died. The sheriff has been in contact with the governor. He's also been in contact with the president of the United States, both who have been on Twitter with this and sending their heartfelt wishes to the families of the victims and the survivors, obviously. The suspect he pulled the alarm, the fire alarm at the school about 2:19 today. It was believed that he got in by posing as a student, had a backpack, had that AR-15 disassembled in that backpack, walked into the school at some point and pulled the fire alarm. 2:19 in the afternoon. Of course, they had a fire drill earlier in the morning, so students were very confused by what happened.
Those were bullet holes there. I don't know if you were able to detect from that live picture there.
I couldn't.
That was one of the buildings, and we saw the glass, and there were 2 bullet holes. And I think now, as we zoom in on that one, we can see some more as well. And obviously caused by the rifle that the suspect used.
We believe that would be the 1200 building, or the freshman part of the building that is widely known as the freshman part of the building, or the 1200 building. The shooting happened inside the school and outside the school. In fact, victims were found both inside and out as well.
And by all accounts from some of the students that we've been able to talk to, many of the same accounts on the suspect, that he was a little off. He was a student at this high school and was kicked out of the school basically because of disciplinary issues, but somehow he was able to get in. He had a backpack on and presumably had that gun inside that backpack. Live pictures here still from the scene. Investigation is ongoing, obviously, even though all rooms in the buildings have been cleared. As we know, Westglades Middle School, which is neighboring to the high school, was also on lockdown earlier today, but that lockdown has been lifted as well.
Yeah, and you got to figure the school's going to be shut down for the rest of the week, obviously, and then probably into next week, as this investigation will take quite some time to unfold. And if it was any indication today that they took their time being able to go through both buildings, clearing both buildings, it was a mass undertaking. If you saw the law enforcement response, there were from Coral Springs, the Broward Sheriff's deputies, ATF, the FBI, state police, all on hand today to help in this investigation.
Right now, what they are looking for is a motive. Why would this 19-year-old student go back to a school and shoot up? And by all accounts, as you mentioned, there was shooting inside the school as well as outside. How he got in. We also heard some harrowing witness accounts of students when they heard that alarm go off and they went outside. They heard some of the gunshots. They started running for cover. Many of them helping each other, and teachers helping the students get out of the school, climbing fences and the like, just horrifying. And then, of course, some of the family members trying desperately to reach out to their loved ones who were still in the school. Some of them were not able to communicate. Of course, a staging area was set for some of the parents to meet up and get any information that they could on some of their loved ones. There was a lockdown in place until not too long ago. Many of the students were still inside some of those classrooms. Of course, authorities had to go in there and make sure and go through every nook and cranny to make sure that it was safe for those students to exit the school.
And this is really telling. When these students heard the gunshots, many of them, we've heard them say this tonight on our broadcast, they knew immediately who was responsible for the gunshots in Nicholas Cruz. And they all have a very similar image of him, profile of him, saying he was just off. There wasn't something right. They knew that he was capable of something like this. In fact, some would even joke in the past that that's the kid that's going to shoot up the school one day.
Yeah, and we can't say enough of the victims, 17 victims in this horrific shooting. And the doctors, by all accounts, say that all of the victims that were transported to the hospitals, to the Broward hospitals system-wide, they were all gunshot wounds. They were treated, some of them died in the hospital in transport, some of them died there at the school, and some of them even died outside on one of the streets.
Right.
So he continued shooting, obviously. Once he exited the school, he continued shooting. And then tried to walk around the area, tried to pass as one of the students until he was finally apprehended in a neighboring neighborhood just outside of the school.
It wasn't far. It was about an hour and a half after the shooting took place. He was able to just kind of mingle in with the students and make his way off campus. Students recognized him, though, and said he went that way, which was west of the high school. Then he ended up in a neighborhood that was known as Wyndham Lakes. Wyndham Lakes Boulevard is where the deputies were able to pick him up, arrest him. Sheriff Israel said they arrested him without incident, meaning he didn't put up a fight or anything, but he did also say that somehow Nicholas Cruz was injured during the arrest.
And the suspect was not a current student of that high school, but he had attended that high school in the past, but he was expelled because of disciplinary reasons. We don't know. Sheriff Scott Israel said that he had heard that he may have attended Taravella, but he wasn't confirming that information. We don't know if he was a student now. Presently, we do know that he at one point attended Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School.
And you were talking about this is the 4th deadliest school shooting in U.S. history. We have some more information relative to school shootings here in the past 20 years. This is it. 32 people have died. That was at Virginia Tech. That was in 2007. 27 people died at Sandy Hook in 2012. 13 died at Columbine High School in 1999. And then this year, 17 die at Stoneman Douglas High School. This is, in the last 20 years, yeah, the third worst.
And the 6th school shooting in 2018. And when you think about that, this is February 14th. So in a month and a half, there have been 6 school shootings nationwide. Some have resulted in fatalities. Let's go to Ari Adzer now with more from the scene. Ari.
Now, Jackie, you just mentioned that horrific number. How many school shootings have we had in this nation? And you hear that number and you can't believe it because these shootings don't even get the attention that they used to get. It's become so commonplace, which is itself an indictment of our entire country. Now, here in Parkland, this city is in shock. They are stunned. The mayor is joining me now, Christine Hunchovsky. Christine, what kind of day has this been from your standpoint, seeing this news come in and then trying to process all of this?
I'm not sure I fully have processed all of it. As you know, Parkland, you've been out here to feature our schools, and we're such a close-knit, family-oriented community. This is shocking that something like this would happen in our community.
It just shows that it can happen anywhere, right?
In this day and age, unfortunately, it does show that it could happen anywhere.
This community supports its schools. Everybody's involved. The PTAs here are ridiculously strong. They just raised $100,000 to redo the library at West Glades Middle School, which we showed everybody and brag about your school on Monday. So given the fact that everyone's so tied into the school, how devastating is this?
This is incredibly devastating. People move to Parkland because of the Broward County public schools we have in Parkland. I was just at Stoneman Douglas this weekend judging a debate tournament that was for the Broward County area. Everybody's very involved in our schools, whether it be people volunteering at the schools who don't even have a child at the school, and it's just amazing. They are a core of our community.
Can you tell us anything more about what happened here from your perspective, talking to law enforcement?
I've heard the same as everybody else has from Sheriff Scott Israel on the television and in the updates. All I can say is when I first got to the scene, which was pretty early on and parents still hadn't heard from their children, it was a very somber experience to see concern in the parents' eyes, and thank goodness for technology that they were hearing from their children. And the police and the first responders, we always say, yes, we appreciate our police and our first responders. It's on days like today that we're extremely grateful to have them.
They really swung into action and worked very swiftly, catching the young man who's suspected of being the shooter and trying to get first aid and life-saving first aid to everyone who they could.
They were simply amazing, and as the afternoon was going on, they were going through the school section by section, and as it was safe, they were letting students out. And to see parents hugging their children,
Look, I was standing here interviewing some parents, you know, and I was starting to lose it on live television because, you know, talking. I have a freshman in high school. You know, as a parent, any parent would sympathize with what these parents are going through, and you never want to have yourself in that position, and these kids never want to be in that position. But something that some of the kids told us, they knew when they heard these shots that it was gunshots. They knew right away, and they knew they had to get out. And the panic and the terror that they feel should never be felt by any high school kids.
It shouldn't be felt by anybody today. And any day and in any area. This hits close to home, and it just goes to show it can happen anywhere. One of the things that has been amazing about the community is the outpouring of support that we've received in the city of asking, how can we help, what can we do? And
that's because it's an incredible community. And thank you for joining us. We have to go back to the studio because I believe we're going to hear from Senator Rubio or another development coming up. Back to you guys.
Okay, Ari, you are right. We have the opportunity now to speak with Florida Senator Marco Rubio. Senator, thanks so much for joining us on this somber day. First of all, you know, we've been reporting on school shootings across the country, but when it happens in your backyard, your thoughts when you heard the news?
Well, you just heard the mayor talk about it. I mean, sadly, all it takes is one deranged individual who decides that, you know, they're, for whatever reason, and we'll learn the motives here over the next few hours and days, but that they're going to do something like this, and suddenly you have a tragedy in your own backyard. And you talk about all those shootings, I would just say that these things build on each other. We've learned that in the past, that these killers learn and get inspiration from the previous cases. They study them, they watch them, and then for whatever reason, they pursue it depending on their motivation. So law enforcement, even as we speak, are interviewing this individual. What's unique about this case compared to some of the others is that this person has been arrested. This person is in custody. And so we didn't have a chance in these other horrible instances to perhaps interview the person who did it. In this particular case, unlike the others, they actually have the assailant in custody. So let me just say, I'll allow federal authorities and local authorities to make the announcements, but I do think that over the next few hours and days, there'll be some questions that people are going to ask themselves about and how this may have gotten to this point.
You have said that you talked to some of the federal authorities and some of the authorities on the scene, and you said that it was clear that the attack was designed and executed to maximize loss of life. What information did you get to come to that conclusion?
Well, again, I'll let them divulge the tactics and so forth, but let me just say that it is clear from what I've been told in these briefings that this was not, in my view and in the view of most in law enforcement I've spoken to about this, that this was not someone who decided to do this 10 minutes before. They thought this animal had thought through carefully what it is that he wanted to do in order to get as many people as possible, utilize some tactics and methods to maximize that. And as I said, you know, what law enforcement will be doing now, they're going to be going through his phone, they're going to be going through their social media, they're going to be going through all of this to try to determine a couple things. Did anybody help? What was the motivation behind this? And then for all of us, we want to learn, obviously, in addition to providing resources and support for the families, the teachers, those impacted by this, we also want to learn what could have happened, what could have been done to prevent it, whether it's a law or a program or just a practice. Because from each of these cases, we find a vulnerability somewhere.
Have you spoken to the president about this?
I have not. I've spoken to the White House, not to the president. In fact, I was going to be at the White House for a bill signing right around the time that this occurred, and obviously didn't go over there. But I have spoken to the numerous law enforcement officials at the federal level. In fact, just before I came here, they just got off the phone with me to go back and do an 8 o'clock briefing where they're kind of bringing all this information together. And, you know, we've activated our local offices. The terrible side note to all of these cases, we learned about this in Pulse and in other places, is all these victims had families. Being South Florida, many may have families who live abroad that will now need help to get here, either to support a victim who's been injured or to bury a loved one. Support systems that can be provided at the federal level for counseling. I mean, virtually every student, teacher, counselor, administrator in that school is eligible and would need some assistance. And if the local school board requires assistance in order to provide that, we got to make sure we step forward and that's provided. I mean, there's so much to do here. And by the way, with all this news out there about the FBI and all the stuff that's going on, this is just a reminder of how extraordinary our firefighters, our police officers, our federal law enforcement at the FBI, the doctors, the nurses, they save lives today. They're saving lives right now. They prevented more people from getting hurt. and they're going to bring this individual to justice.
I know that some of these individuals, they're, like we said, they're part of our backyard, friends and family members. It's going to be a long time for them to recover from this. Your message to some of the victims and their families?
I don't know what words anyone could say. I can't imagine. I mean, everybody's kind of cliche-ish, but as you know and others know, I mean, I have children around that age. I have two kids in high school right now. And just to try to put yourself in the spot of watching on the news. Imagine you're watching on the news, you read that there's been a shooting and that the shootings occurred at the school where your kids attend. And so one of the things I was really upset about early on is there was a lot of speculation going on, and I knew that some of the victims and some of those who lost their lives, their families had not even been notified yet. And so you always worry about someone finding out about this on television because someone being interviewed on live TV decides to say a name, and it's not their fault in the heat of the moment. So you think about all these things, and you just, this is inexplicable. When something like this happens, you just don't understand why someone would do it. But over the next few hours and days, people are going to learn a lot more about what was behind this, and then we'll have some tough questions about how we handle some of the people in our country and in our society that are facing, that have shown signs in the past of being potentially violent, and before we act, it's too late.
By all accounts that we've heard, many people thought that the suspect was a bit off, and some people even saying to the point that if somebody was going to do this, it would be this 19-year-old that was a student at that high school. And as you know, Senator, it won't take long before people start politicizing what happened here today.
Yeah, you know, I don't know about, you know, obviously there's a debate in this country about what our gun laws should be, and I've always said if there's a gun law that could have prevented this or any other instance, it's something we should definitely consider doing. But I think we need to wait to make sure, number one, that most of the laws, and I don't want to get into that debate right now. There's people watching this that may have someone they loved, and that's not what they're interested at this moment. Maybe they are. But a lot of the laws that have been proposed would not have prevented these attacks in the past. And in this particular case, we don't know how this individual got a hold of weapons and ammunition and the like, whether they did it legally, whether it was stolen. We just don't know. We'll learn from that. And if from that we learn something that should have been done, then we should do it. You know, bump stocks is an issue you hear a lot of talk about. Nobody even knew what that was until Las Vegas. From Omar Mateen, we learned about how someone had been on the FBI list twice and still, you know, they stopped watching him. We learned from a recent shooting about someone who had been discharged from the military having evident signs of mental illness, and the background check system didn't catch him. So, of course, laws can always be made better, and that's a legitimate public policy debate. We should have it. We should always explore ways to make our country safer, but I also think it's unfair for anyone to represent that there's an easy answer to all this, because there isn't. At the end of the day, it's not just what people are using to carry out these attacks. There's a deeper fundamental question, and that is, why are people doing this? Why in the richest, most prosperous country in the world with extraordinary opportunities does a 19-year-old man decide to take the life of 17 fellow human beings and try to take the life of many more? What leads someone to do that if it's not an ideology? That's a difficult question, and we need an answer to it, and then figure out what we can do about it.
Senator Marco Rubio, we appreciate your time on this somber day. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right, here we are at the 7:50 hour. We're going to be off air about 7:57. We're going to go to the Olympics, and then right after the Olympics, we'll have the late news. But Willard Shepard joins us now with more. You have stuff on school for tomorrow?
Yeah, that's right, Keith. Just reached out to the superintendent, Dr. Runcie, and his team, kind enough under these circumstances to get back to us. Here's what we can tell you from the superintendent's office in Broward County about tomorrow. They are saying to me now that Stoneman, the high school, will be closed the rest of this week. It will not be open at all the rest of this week, but that the other schools in Broward County will be open for our parents who are listening across Broward County, and there are 340,000 students in the Broward County school system. The information I have from the superintendent's office is that where this tragedy unfolded today, that school will be closed, that high school, but the other schools will be up and running.
And as far as you know, that includes West Glades Middle School. The other school, do you know that or not?
That I don't have an answer to yet. We'll try to clarify that.
School.
Yeah, in the next 3 or 4 minutes here.
Okay, thank you so much, Willard and Trina. A lot to go over here today, and a lot that we are going to have to digest and get some answers to so many questions as to what happened here today. But the fact of the matter is that 17 people lost their lives today as a result of a school shooting. Something unimaginable, something that we cannot understand, and right now the suspect is in custody, and as Senator Rubio said, that's an important piece to this puzzle because hopefully we can get some answers at least to a motive. Which is something that we have not seen in a lot of other school shootings where the gunman has taken his own life or was shot and killed by law enforcement. I want to go back out now to Jawan.
Yes, Keith and Jackie, Sheriff Scott Israel said it best when he said, quote, "This is catastrophic. There really are no words." And that's pretty much the feeling from many of the people here that I've spoken to on the scene, students, parents, neighbors, who are trying to comprehend exactly what happened here today, what happened inside the school here today. Many of them trying to make sense of this tragedy. The gentleman I spoke with earlier, if you were tuning in, the 18-year-old who was running away from the shooting inside the school, who spoke with us earlier, he still has not heard from one friend, and he says that he believes that friend passed away. He said that there's word maybe that that friend passed away, so he keeps on asking me, do I know the names? Have you heard of the names? Do you know the names of the victims? Can you tell me anything? And I keep on telling him, we're just going to have to wait, and I'm sure we're going to be able to tell him something here soon. But that is the feeling out here, just a lot of shock and dismay as people are walking by here just trying to make sense of this tragedy. And again, you've heard from the Senator Marco Rubio and others. It's going to take a while to try to get down to the bottom of this, and of course change hopefully will come out of this, but right now there's a lot of people still in so much pain. Back to you guys.
Yeah, and we're all trying to grasp what happened here today. Joanne, great reporting out there. Thanks so much. At the end of the day, we have been here since about 2:30 this afternoon covering what has been a devastating day for all of us here in South Florida as we've had to report a shooting in our own backyard of a high school with 17 people as victims of 19-year-old Nicholas Cruz.
You send your kids to school thinking that is one of the safest places on earth, and it just didn't happen today. It's just one of the, and we've seen how this happened. It can happen anywhere, especially at a school like this, in a community like this, which is very soft, very quiet. Not much happens there. They're very proud of their community, and there's just no crime up there.
Right, and school, Marjorie Stoneman Douglas School, will be closed for the rest of the week. Of course, so many people who experienced the horrific events of today are going to be traumatized as a result of this. We could only imagine that there will be counselors on campus starting next week when the school reopens once again, trying to help students and teachers and administrators cope with going back to the school, because that's going to be a big step for many of these students and teachers to go back to school. And even some of these seniors, you know, these are the last months that they will be at this school. And just to come back to the school where this happened cannot be easy and will not be easy.
No, obviously counseling will be there, and you know, not just for the students, but for the teachers, the administrators there as well. You can also, if you'd like to learn how you could help out some of the victims, the surviving victims, One Blood is asking that you go ahead and donate. They really need O negative. That's the universal blood type. They need that in using the blood to treat the trauma patients there. They already shipped down, One Blood did, from Orlando to Broward Health North Hospital as well as Broward Health Medical Center. As soon as this happened, this mass shooting, this mass casualties happened, they shipped that blood, but now they're running low, so they need O negative donors to please just stop by One Blood or the big red bus that you'll see out there in parking lots and grocery stores. So important. Of course, we're going to continue to follow this story. We're going to have live updates throughout the evening. We are going to be showing Olympics coverage starting at 8 o'clock, but we will be live online on NBC6.com with every news conference, with any new information that comes out of this horrific shooting here today. 17 people dead. There are still a number of people in critical condition in area hospitals that are still being treated. Some have been released. That's the good news. A school has been closed for the rest of the week. Jawan, you're on the scene. I know that you had the opportunity to speak to some parents. Just a very emotional and devastating day.
Absolutely. I spoke with a few parents out here. Again, they're still in shock, but they're very happy that their kids are okay, but they feel kind of bad because there's so many parents out there that don't have that news. They don't get a chance to go home with their children. Again, we will continue to follow this out here live from the scene and have a lot more after the Olympics.
Okay, Joanne, thanks. The fourth deadliest school shooting in U.S. history, more deaths than Columbine. School shooting here in Parkland, in our backyard. Marjorie Stoneman Douglas, 17 people passed away today.
With mass casualties, 6 school shootings since the first of this year, less than just over a month. As of February 2nd, there were 6 shootings. This makes the 7th.
The Winter Olympics are coming up here on NBC6. We will continue to follow this story online and on the NBC6 app. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you after the Olympics.